with me, Peter Gordon. And Peter, you and I applied to a grant challenge called the OSV Challenge. We discovered each other in our projects, the overlap, sort of the shared mission that we have to activate people in serving the poor, to allow people to grow. Sort of as their project grows, there's internal growth that takes place. They find friends, they build community, they build their parish, and help more people want to come to relationship within the church and to know God. And that's the heart of my project. It's sort of developed in different ways, but tell me some little aspects of your start in this and in your parish and what's that. Good grief.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do that whole thing over again. Go ahead. Tell me about the beginning.
Yeah. So it was uh, the idea for my project came up first from an experience I had at the University of Notre Dame. I participated in their what they call their alumni family volunteer camp, and it's basically a week on their campus, and every day you just go out and you know do service projects in the South Bend area. I didn't go to Notre Dame myself, so it was really my first experience on that campus.
They have
And
great water in their vending machines, by the
oh
way,
yes,
which is the secret to making good bread and pizza and cinnamon rolls. I did a week there once too. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
were at a week long family volunteer camp and you
yeah.
did this multiple years,
Yeah, I
10,
think let's see, I probably went. I think it's 3 years that I went.
but it was the
Um,
first year
yeah,
that you had an experience that sort of got you started into brainstorming or whatever this journey is.
yeah. It's. I don't think it was the first year. I think it was the second year came back because it was actually it was a little tough because it was a year after my mother had passed away, and so it was on the campus this like the anniversary of her passing, and I was out there thinking like, well, what's how can I make this intentionally spiritual for me
Yeah.
as an experience, and uh, and what I had realized was in these encounters with all the different people, whether it was uh, painting somebody's house or just talking to somebody at the community garden, that there was this encounter with God that happened, and it's kind of like the realization that I had when I was out there was as I reflected on my experiences, I could see, here's God talking to me. He's tapping him on my shoulder, saying, "Hey, go do something," and responding to it. And I realized that you know at the end of the week we were asked to do a reflection at this dinner, and volunteers would go up and say something, and I started telling everyone about this experience and what it was like to realize God's kind of tapping you on his shoulder,
Yeah.
and that was the thing I wanted to get other people involved in having that kind of experience.
Right. And
Uh,
God does really tap on our shoulder when we start moving towards him or moving towards serving the
yeah,
poor. It simplifies things. It helps us kind
yeah,
of call to mind what is most important. So if I'm serving the poor and I go home and I'm going to play 3 hours of video games, which I don't do. I have 4 kids, can't really play video games. Not that I'd want to. But when you go and do that service experience, right, you're out there, you're serving, you're doing something meaningful. It's heroic in that simple way where somebody's maybe
yeah,
getting warm food from me.
yeah,
And then I go home, I'm not going to probably want to play video games. It would be like, it'd almost be like if I went to the gym and then went home and started porking out and all the worst food. Like you get momentum going towards God, he'll start to
yeah,
draw you in.
yeah,
And it does help us to start to reflect on the kingdom of God, our close family members. How do we make life about them? How do we make life about serving the poor? And so certainly that makes sense that somebody might scratch their head and think, well, if you lost your mom and you're doing this service camp, there's not really a connection that could be made between that experience and your memory and celebrating the life of your mom.
Yeah.
But coming closer to God and serving and having that relational focus, it does for me. And as you're sharing, bring us back to those simple, most important relationship themes.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, what was the connection, you know, with my mom passing? And that was actually a significant piece uh, of why I was looking for some connection at this camp. So
Mm.
when my mom had passed away, I remember speaking with one of her friends, and she was kind of like, where's God in all this? Why did she have to suffer? She was sick for a long time, and there was this sort of, well, what's the point of suffering? Why does God let this happen? And uh, one of the observations I had in sort of reflecting around her passing, and what would I actually spoke at her funeral mass about this was, um, you know, God was right there in her suffering, calling out to other people. And that impetus that people felt to, oh, I need to go visit her at the hospital, or I need to do something for her, that was, them responding to that call. And it wasn't like God was absent. He was like right there in the midst of her suffering. And that was something that I took, into this service week of, asking God, really, where are you in this suffering that I'm going to go, encounter this week? And what I learned from that is, you hear his voice. You hear himself calling you into that space or that's created around someone's suffering, where you can, enter in and be merciful.
Yeah. Now, thank
So
you,
that was really
Peter.
the connection. I kind of learned something from my mom's passing, and
Yeah.
realized even more deeply what it meant on that week.
Yeah. I want to thank you for sharing that personal connection because it's going to be helpful to somebody. Certainly, what I would say about my service experience is that there is that personal interior development that happens.
Hmm.
When we are externally doing service, we're always then looking back and saying, okay, well, here's where I'm not as good as I thought. Now that I'm thinking about the important things, now I'm thinking about what I'm actually doing with my time, with my life, with my resources. Maybe this amount of time that I spend, I think there's a statistic 6 to 8 hours are spent per person per day on TV, on the phone, on average. Okay, it could be
Wow.
more. And so when we start to shine a light on God and serving the poor and these good things, it shines a light on some of those other things as well. And then we start to reflect on, how if we only have so much time to live, can I spend more time to help the suffering, more time with my family? You think about, I heard on a YouTube show Impact Theory, which is funny because my organization is Impact Resources.
Yeah.
Um, the guy was asking the host Tom Bilyeu. He said, "How many times a year do you see your mom?" Let's say the average age that somebody lives to is whatever. That's 20 more years. You're gonna see her 10 more times before she passes away on average. Well, and you quantified it down to how many times. And so that kind of brings us back to that self-evaluation, that what would you say, that review. What am I doing with my life? And that's kind of the first step to reflection when we think about what gets us to think about approaching service, and how helpful would that be, right? If we're able to share that journey with other individuals and then with the parish.
Yeah.
And so with you, you were at this family volunteer camp at Notre Dame University, and you had an experience there. What what kind of happened there, and then how did you take that back to your parish?
Yeah. So the, the there was that sort of spiritual understanding that I got there from just putting together my reflection. Realizing that, in these moments, kind of God speaking to us. But there's also this practical observation of, they were really organized. It's like there was a team of people who had to go out into the community, find all this work to do, and
Mm-hmm.
coordinate like 100 people to get out daily for a week to do it.
Yeah. It's all
and
year
then
long.
this, yeah,
Or
and
Catholic
yeah,
Heart Work Camp, I have some background. They do the same
yes,
thing. It takes them
yes,
all year long to
yeah,
find work
it,
for
it,
summer campers to do for a week. So,
yeah. So that's it's it's hard work. Um, and then when I got back to my parish, we were working on a we've been working hard working with this group called Divine Renovation. We're uh, been trying to like revitalize this parish, and um, I was part of the senior leadership team, and we're talking about, well, what are some of the initiatives and things that we could do.
mhm.
And as I looked at all the things we had on our board and everything, I said, well, what about volunteering? What about getting out into the community? And I had in my mind, okay, here's this sort of, you know, big project that Notre Dame puts on. How could we do something similar to that within the parish?
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
was part of it. It was like, well, yeah, how are we going to make sure that we find ways to encourage and enable um, the parishioners to go out and serve our community and be very intentional about it. What's rather than it sort of being haphazard. Somebody picks up, oh, we want to do you know the food pantry ministry, or the homeless shelter ministry, or the prison ministry, and have different kind of ministries popping up. How can we be very intentional about the whole process of
Mhm.
enabling volunteering?
Now,
um,
yeah, so I have some
yeah,
years of experience of organically starting service projects and then church communities or student bodies kind of
yeah,
taking them up. I could share a bit about how that started, but you and I have talked about, and I'm excited to share the progress of your parish because they've asked you to take a leadership role. They've asked you to
yeah,
speak at events and to organize and sort of cultivate this service community at your parish. And
yeah,
my team of content creators and speakers are hoping to do that nationally and to plant service communities like the one you're doing down the road. And so this will be a great experience for me to be able to
yeah,
learn from your parish experience.
yeah.
But so some of the things that we did, you know, would see people living on the street on the way to school, to college,
Mm-hmm.
and I would get to know them because the other students were interacting with them. So that was sort of like an opening of a door to me to serving the poor and getting to know the humanity, the person um, behind the label of homeless. And so
Mm-hmm.
all of the different communities of serving and the purpose of Impact Resources to serve those people and to activate more people is that the more people that search, the more eyes that look for the poor and unseen, the smaller the search. And the more hands that
Mm-hmm.
do the labor, the lighter the work. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the goal is to activate and to have more people serving. So you wanted to replicate the service at your parish, and that's kind of our
Mm-hmm.
model as well. So we
Yeah.
fit kind of like hand in glove here.
Yeah.
So where is that now, and what's the next step to come, and what can we kind of look forward to?
Yeah. So there's a couple pieces to what I'm doing, just very practically speaking. Uh, Over the last 6 months, I've been trying to put together a plan for, well, what is it that this idea is in practice. It started off with yeah, we just want to encourage volunteering, and a second piece of that was we also want people to be able to the come back together into like small groups, and be able to reflect on those experiences, or even have some inspiration about those experiences, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, over the last few months, the idea crystallized into a combination of at least two pieces of technology that I'm working on, and then deploying that into the community as tools they can use.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one already
Wait,
existed. There's
hold
this
on.
tool called
Can I
Gift Pulse. Yeah,
can I stop? My
yeah.
son. Can you hear my son through your audio?
No.
Okay, that's good, because he has been having an uncontrollable tantrum for the past like 5 minutes. Can I
Oh,
try to? Can I help? What I'll do is I'll come back. You kind of ended. You said there's two pieces of technology, and then we'll
yeah,
go into those real quick. I just gotta.
yeah.
What was the other piece of technology that you were gonna say?
Oh yeah, there's two things. One's like a volunteer platform, and the other is a content platform.
Okay,
That's
and the
how I
content.
just
And
yeah.
are they going to be joined together in one app? Is
Um,
that a possibility?
it's a possibility in the long term. In the short term, not likely.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, what's it like incarnationally on the ground at your parish? What kind of pushback? What's it? How's are people being galvanized and the
Yeah.
leadership is being supportive? Like, what's the overall environment?
Well, that's a would be a great follow up question for the next one because I
Okay.
mean, we're literally rolling something out Sunday. I'm speaking at each mass on Sunday, saying, "Oh, here's the initial carnation of how we're going to help people volunteer, and here's a platform where we're going to be able to share content and do like group reflections and all that kind of stuff." And so we're literally rolling it out on Sunday for the first time, and we'll see
I think
what
people are
the
going to receive it
reaction
very
is.
well. I really,
Pardon?
I think that people love the idea of service. You're going to speak about it well. People are going to receive it. They're going to love it.
No.
What happened in the beginning with the leadership side? So you talked about, I mean, did you talk about like putting something on the website? Because that could be a liability, but also could be helpful in terms of offering or matching people to service opportunities.
Yeah, yeah.
Term.
So, in the short term, we actually just this past week have been working with the Catholic Heart Work Camp. One of our
Yeah, I love them.
someone on our parish staff has worked with them over the past year. The Catholic Heart Work Camp in Boston is one of the sites that they're coming to next week
I've
is
seen it.
our parish. So
Yeah.
we have a couple people coming, and so we started off by just that. And so if there are certain people that the group can't get to, then we'll take it on in the parish to figure out how to match up those people with the services and help that they need.
Mhm.
So that's the initial thing.
So the way that Catholic
We're
Art Work Camp works is like people ask to be considered if they have a house project and they're not able-bodied to do it. So
yeah
the campers would then come to their house, so they kind of apply for it. So are you saying in Massachusetts, Boston area, if there's a family that has a need but they don't make the list of 47 projects or whatever it is, or however many campers are there, split into groups of 6 or so there's 250 campers, there'd be like 40 something projects, that some
yeah
fall through the cracks in that area.
yeah we're there. We have a handful of people around the Salem area. That's where
Mm.
my parish is based, is Salem, Mass. And so there's a couple people who asked for help, and if the work camp kids can't get to it, then we'll take it on as a parish and kind
I
of
love that.
see where it goes from
That's like the
there.
good shepherd, making sure to find, like, to make sure that each person in their project is served.
Yeah.
Can I tell you? So I took a group of about 10 kids to Catholic Heart Work Camp in Denver,
Oh yeah.
from Florida to Denver and back, and it was a great trip. It was probably one of the best weeks of my life, just seeing these kids and myself growing. They had a wonderful program, and I guess this is a PSA. I can't recommend Catholic Heart Work Camp enough for teenagers.
Yeah.
And I talk about this in other podcasts about that journey that you can be on over the years. If you have 2 hours a week of service, this is like an introduction to a life of service. It's a
Yeah.
reflection. It's a program of so much fun, and it really makes the project meaningful and hammers all that home. Now, I actually we missed our flight due to terrible weather and like really long lines at the airport.
Yeah.
And so I had 10 kids, and all of the flights were canceled or delayed. And I had one chaperone. And so, like, for the whole day, I'm like telling every customer service representative, I've been so impressed with you, Southwest. You've been so accommodating. Every person I've talked to has helped me so much. Here's the deal: I got 10 kids, and I got to get them home. And I was trying to figure out, like, I got to send that one because they're the one who's complaining the most, but they're old enough to go alone. If there's one standby seat that opens up, she's going. If there's two, I got to send the 18-year-old with the youngest, or not the youngest, but like a medium one, and keep the youngest with me and the other chaperone. If I get four, I'm sending the chaperone first. It was nuts. Eventually, finally, and this is just kind of goes into, well, anyway, there was a lady, one at the Southwest, who got us all on a flight. It was instead of going back to Orlando, she got us to Tampa, and we had the van that picked us up go to Tampa instead, and just pay them a little more money, and she
Yeah.
gave us all of the spots, even though there were other people. So, oh man, when we're serving the poor, when we're serving in the parish, like that's the experiential part of it. That's what I like to
Yeah.
share. Is it's not just like a theoretical. Oh yeah, we should do
Yeah.
good things for people in need, or
Yeah.
here is the 1, 2, 3 A through Z of how to go about making your life in some way participating in service. No, it's an
Yeah.
experiential learning. You have to go try service because
Yeah.
there are times where you can have that kind of experience. Like when she said we were all getting on the plane, I said, can I give you a high five or a thank you? She's like, you can give me a hug, and she was like all emotional
Yeah.
about it because I had talked to her 5 or 6 times. I was running up and down the airport and making sure everyone was still with the chaperone, talking to the
Yeah.
different gates, running to the standby time to say, do you have any standby seats? It was crazy. It was nuts.
Yeah.
But so that's the experience that we're hoping we'll be able to replicate. Replication is a key to
Yeah.
our project. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I've been thinking about in developing what we're doing at the parish is, and what actually got me to think about the OSV challenge. I first started thinking, well, what can I do? And once I started thinking about it, I said, wait a second, it needs to be something we can replicate and duplicate and say, because if it works well, we should encourage other parishes to do something similar. And that kind of snowballed into, well, why don't I do something that is intentionally focused for any type of parish to be able to start. And so that just being able to replicate that experience is important. So
Yeah, and so like
yeah.
for me, when I started my senior project and was a credible community of students at John Paul the Great Catholic
Mhm.
University near San Diego, and so I would start something, and then like the 3 people I asked would bring 10 friends each of like the 200 kids. So it was such a tight community that everybody was really in most ways intertwined in friendship with each other.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, people want to ask more and more, who are you with? Who are you doing this with? What's the reason you're doing it? And there was a church choir, a Rotary Club, and more people in the community came together to either support or do the care packages in their car to hand out to the homeless or visiting the retirement homes with us. And they said, hey, can we do caroling with your group? So, service, if it's going to be replicated, the first instance, the first blueprint, the first building block or model, it's as well as you do that you're going to be able to share that replication model with other people. They're going to see your community being formed through our content, and they're going to
Yeah.
see the impact, the meaningful pursuit, the growth even in our podcast. When you and I are talking about this, we're going to have some good things to share, and
Yeah.
the extent to which we are able to strengthen our own service project is the strength that we're going to pass on.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Yeah. It's
But,
and I'm looking forward to talking with you more because it's the one thing I can tell is you've been doing this type of service work for a long time. Since you're in college, and that's where it seems like a lot of it started.
yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm a late bloomer, a late comer to all this type of service work. It's not something that was a large part of my life before I kind of dove into this project. I had a little fits and starts here and there where I did a few things when I was in college, but you know it really wasn't a big part of my life. So I'm actually coming at this type of project more from the perspective of how can I help people grow in their faith, and realizing that through service this is a great way you can encounter God through being merciful, and that's really where I come from, is that sort of that experience of God is merciful, and when you realize as you're serving people, you're being in His instrument in that role.
Well,
And so I'm kind
yeah.
of coming from this more reflection, contemplative type of approach, less from the actual experience of managing service projects. That's where I'm gonna be learning a lot. It's like, okay, how do you
Well,
do
that's
this?
great.
Well,
No, a lot of people are in that situation. You know, they've lived and they've had a strong career and they've, had to take care of their family. And then they come to the point of, well, what am I going to do to give now? Of course, my message is always for young people, and our target audience is really young adults, university students, young adults with families. Because for
yeah,
me, thank you for mentioning the experience that I do have with doing service, but it really started with the blessing of my parents and their consistent approach to bringing us to bring communion to the retirement home and do the Bible study with them, and to visit
yeah,
the adult mentally handicapped and open my world to, wow, people who are not like me are still worthy of love, worthy of being listened to, and also equal to me in every way. And I have disadvantages and sinfulness, or if I'm addicted to my phone, who am I, to not work on that and point fingers at somebody who's on the street who might have an addiction. So, okay, but you know, giving back, and so being in the place that you are in, you were a successful patent lawyer. That's a lot of paperwork. That's a lot of hard work and detail and focus. And you're in a position where, wow, God's done something for me, for you. And how can I give? And for young people, which is the target of Impact Resources, giving is another way to sort of become the person that can be successful, could be a professional and have a community and build a community and grow an influence. It's a way to build oneself up internally and be more worthy of a pay raise or to find a spouse or good friends. So our target is really for young adults, young students, and young families to raise their families or to be themselves um, immersed into service in a way that provides context for their friendships, their relationships, and their true, meaningful life pursuits that go
yeah,
deeper than what's happening in their career. And
yeah,
so for you, though, it's like so many different possibilities for somebody who's listening to this, like what journey they're on and where they're at in that journey.
yeah,
Should Now is the time to add service to it,
yeah.
or
Oh,
reflection, or
definitely.
like we've talked about with your experience with the family volunteer camp, taking a step back. So,
Yeah.
um, who doesn't need to take a step back from this busy life driven by media and consumerism and take stock of
Oh,
things?
yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And there's something you just commented on there was that um, that experience in career. One of the things that I think young people will develop when they are engaged in a lot of service activity is this sense of dignity that's owed every person. And whatever you do in your career, when you go into that work community, if you develop those habits of just treating people with dignity, that will affect your workplace. It
Sure.
will
Yeah.
affect everyone that you interact with, and
Absolutely.
you'll find that that kind of behavior is actually unusual.
Yeah.
There's you get out into the business world, and there's a lot of people that don't treat each other well, and it really sticks out when
Yeah.
someone does.
It's a light
Yeah,
to
and that's where you learn that
glorify,
type of behavior.
to give glory to God. It's a light that you're shining in the workplace. I would
Yeah,
also say that life skills and people skills, it's like service helps us to develop those,
yeah,
because we have to listen, we have to see what the other person needs, we have to be others focused. Sometimes, well, really, what's the training? So when did we learn how to do a job in high school? Right, get your homework
yeah,
in on time, get your work in on time. It's
yeah,
sort of like the Industrial Revolution. The curriculum is designed for that. And so when I'm in high school, I don't learn how to be happy or fulfilled or pursue what's meaningful. I don't know how to. I don't think many people have entrepreneurship classes in high school, and I don't know why that is. I think it's what I just laid out actually is to get people into the workforce, and so people end up needing that formative experience outside of what's given to them. It has to be within the family, so that's why we try to help young families get their kids into service, or
yeah,
during university. If you want to have the real college experience, I don't think that for me personally, my perception of being out and drinking and partying and smoking or whatever I never got into that. I never thought I wanted to give my faculties up. I'm very kind of heady. I want to be in control, but it wasn't fulfilling. It didn't strike me as something that was worth doing. But serving the poor, and one of the main ways to serve the poor that I like is mentorship. That was for me my main outlet for service when I moved to California and I was there on my own and I felt restless and lonely. I didn't have a community and I was getting to know friends, but I hadn't really formed them yet. That I had to be doing either coaching sports, teaching in a class like fifth grade or sixth grade, or volunteering at a youth group.
Hmm.
And that gave me so much purpose to go along with doing homework. I got to go and have that outlet. And so that was the real college experience for me. And then I got to share that, and I got to actually do that with other friends from college that were, doing that with me. They were brought me in, or I brought them into it.
Yeah.
And so that really made college a beautiful community experience and fun. It made it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's an alternative.
Yeah.
Who's going to choose the alternative to drinking and partying and do some service work once a week?
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
it was a long time ago, but my college days were, I definitely wasn't the party type, but I wasn't the, anti-party type either. So so I had my fun, but those were years ago. But there was one really good experience I had in college was, I did two volunteering type of projects. One was, I worked as a computer programmer, but I was in the I forget what the formal name was, but it was basically the public defender's office, and I had to help them write some well, write these programs to help them create documents that would instruct juries how to decide cases, and it was really kind of eye opening to read all the different pieces of a crime that a prosecutor would need to prove, and just writing out those jury instructions was uh, it was sad sometimes. It's like, oh really, that's what this case is about. That was just one thing I did. Don't want to be a downer on that. And then
No, but
but one of my
what
best.
was that experience? Was there any meaning derived from that? Was there any positive that you felt you were contributing to make that situation better?
Yeah, I think one of the it's one of those things in hindsight you kind of see it now where
Yeah, that
I
definitely is the
had some
case.
appreciation now for
Yeah,
um, it's really important for somebody who's been accused of a crime to actually have good representation,
yeah,
and
fair
that was
trial.
part of the role I was playing because people can be falsely accused, and even if they aren't falsely accused, they still need to be treated justly, and that was the kind of perspective I got from the other from the attorneys who were actually working there.
Yeah,
I worked with the head of that department, and yeah, it's kind of it's disheartening to see how much crime there is and how violent some crime is, but it's still y- you know people need to be treated justly,
yeah. So
and that was
what's
really the message I
striking,
got
or
out of it.
what's, I guess, also helpful is your work can be in some way a contribution that leads to reflection, contemplation, and growth internally.
Yeah,
And so, and I said that also about finding a way to serve. So there's so many different ways to use your gifts and strengths that match with whether you like to be around people and serving them in person, or if you're a project focused person, you want to accomplish something at home and then bring it, or what have you, is that work and doing what you're expert at for people in need. My kids are knocking at the door. I am not an expert father, that's for sure. But also,
no
yeah,
one is.
let me
There's
tie that in
there's only
right
one.
now. So, doing something for your work or within your family and serving your
Yeah,
kids and whatever, there's so much meaning in that the next step is then find 2 hours a month or 2 hours a week to serve in the community. Once you have your household together, the next step to
yeah,
build off of that is how do families then come together, take the next step of serving and influencing the community for good. Because if we only serve within our family and we're just pouring into, and internally cyclical, then if no family serves the community or the greater body of the church, then we do have the stagnant non-growth, and we also have the world sort of taking a path of least resistance without us being out there and being a thermostat rather than a thermometer, right? If we're just kind of sitting in the water going, it's getting warm, and we're not changing the way the world is, then the world's in trouble. And so, but look, I've said many eyes searching for the unseen and the poor, and many hands make for light work and a smaller search. And so it doesn't take, this big call of leaving all of your life behind. I think the the laity, which is a Catholic term for those who are not a priest or a deacon or a sister, just us regular folk, if we're to commit to something small that benefits us, helps us grow, and if we could see us in our own families benefiting, that's really the invitation that we're extending is how can we replicate that at the individual level so that there's
Yeah.
more people to spread the work around of serving the poor. And that,
Yeah.
again, goes to mentoring those who just need a little extra time, love, and care. That goes to serving in the hospitals, prison ministry, homeless ministry, retirement homes. And you could find there's so many ways to serve, but there is one way for you that's life-giving, that helps strengthen your sense of purpose and community. So,
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's like as I'm doing this rollout thing on Sunday in my parish, and just saying a few words about that. That's 100% true. Is everyone has their gifts, their own talents, their own capabilities, and plus their own station in life. So not everybody is called to do the same thing, and then there are also different stages in life and different
there's seasons
circumstances
of
where
life. There's
you
tough things
yeah
going on. Yeah, or if
yeah
there's good things going on, it's easier to give. There's
exactly
difficult things to manage. It's maybe time
yeah
to take a step back, but still retain that part of my identity that I will serve, but I
yeah
have to take care of what's going on right now.
yeah
And so,
and
yeah,
sometimes that service, it doesn't have to be a major act that you go out and perform. For some people, their best way of serving is prayer, by praying for others, and that's something we actually have at our parish. Is this little we have a healing team and an intercessory prayer team that that's part of what we've been thinking about. Is as some people are off on service projects, there are going to be some people who are just praying for them, and that is their mode of service. And everybody can pray. So that's just one of those one way to serve is just prayer.
yeah. And so, prayer and service kind of go hand in hand. Before
Mm-hmm.
I ask you to kind of give us a preview of what's coming after, if the Sunday Mass talk, this invitation goes well, what you envision could be possible with your parish, what could be the potential drawbacks. We might hash those out for another few minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
prayer and service. Okay, so I found that when I bring pizza with the college kids to the homeless, I'm always driven into prayer because service leads almost into prayer automatically. And I think that prayer can almost always automatically have some kind of a seed to service. It doesn't always grow from my prayer to my service, but for somebody else it could. But when I'm praying about something, I'm more likely to act on it. I'm more likely to do something about it. And when I'm serving, I definitely bring it to God because it just kind of reminds me how small I am and how little, uh, you know, little I can do, what little impact I can have. Although it's a big impact to the person, it's a personal impact.
Oh yeah, true.
But
Very.
one bite of food, it's more of the sharing of relationship that's long term impact.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that person when I leave, a lot of times it's touch and go. And what do I leave them with? They get to eat food with their friends, and they get to thank God for it because they don't know who I am. I'm a stranger, but I just naturally what happens is they thank God. They don't think about me, and I love that because I don't want
Yeah.
someone to, and I don't want to give them Aaron. I really want to give them Jesus. And so I bring friends with me that say, "Hey, we're doing this in the Lord's name. Can we pray with you?" And I love those guys because like that's like the next step. That's like the ultimate is if you can pray with somebody in need, especially if they bring it up, or if you can ask them, "Are you a praying person? Are you someone who likes to pray?" And you
Mm-hmm.
don't have like an awkward. You have an easy transition to that
Yeah.
prayer. So to pray, you just kind of start by acknowledging, just for people who have never prayed before, have to kind of just share the really easy our pirate prayer. You just acknowledge what's going on. Say, hey, I'm kind of distracted, Lord or God. Or I've never taught. Are you God? I don't know if your name is God or whatever you are, but I've never prayed before. If that's you, or if you have, but you aren't doing it in the habit of doing it often, say, I'm not really in the habit of doing this, but here it goes. And you start acknowledging what are the distractions and what are the things going on. And before you know it, God says we can only pray in the Holy Spirit. And once you start, He kind of helps that conversation. It's two-way at that point, and you're good.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in. So this Sunday, you're speaking. What could happen if this goes well? What comes next?
Yeah, yeah. So long as I don't, have a total flame out and crash and burn.
Well,
you
it
know,
have to happen
that's-
every single time, right? Because you get
Yeah.
chances. You get how many masses do you have?
Oh, I
How
got
many-
3, and one of them is in Spanish. So
Okay.
I
you
don't know
speaking
if I'm
your-
actually going to take a wing at the Spanish or not. It's been about 20 years since I ever tried, but I
Oh,
might
just
just
no.
have, I might
gonna
have
do
somebody else like translate it for me.
You could keep
So,
it simple.
Yeah. Oh
Because
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's
they're
short.
gonna
It's short.
tell
It's like
it crosses through the language barrier when you're saying mi corazón es para Jesús y para los pobres, for the poor. If they're like, this guy doesn't know Spanish, but this is great because it's coming
yeah,
from his
that's a great one. Yeah. So yeah. So what if everything goes well? I'm assuming it will. We're basically inviting people to join 2 platforms on both of which have apps. One is really just a volunteer platform. You go in, you sign up, and what we're doing there with the parish is we're gonna run all of our ministries on that, and so those will be private events within that platform that only our parishioners can see. But it will get everyone on the platform, and then the platform has access to all these other nonprofits in the area and their volunteer opportunities. So the point of that is to get people onto the platform and get volunteering. Part of my task will be also reaching out to other nonprofits in the area and people that aren't even large entities, but things like nursing homes, whatever, and get local
find out what they need.
local nonprofits, charities, whomever, get them onto the platform to kind of post
Yeah.
their opportunities and so on.
Make
And
sure
then
they have
that's-
a need that
Yeah, so that's
That would
just
be
building
good.
up the volunteering. Yeah.
you
So-
have the apps done already or ready
Um,
to go.
They're actually, well, the volunteer platform's ready to go because that I just use an existing app. There's a tool called GivePulse,
Yeah.
and it's a big platform that a
There's
lot of
also one called,
universities
just so I
use.
can throw it out there, Give
Yeah.
Pulse is what you have there. Volunteer Movement and Give Pulse. Volunteer
Yeah.
Movement, vomo.org, VOMO.
Yep.
It has all of these volunteer opportunities near most cities. And so if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, you want to find a way to jumpstart or to plug into something that's already established and organized, Give Pulse and vomo.org. So you
Yeah.
have that, and then you've got the other app up and running that you and the parish.
Yes, it's it's up and running. It's actually rudimentary right now, and that's where I'll have to beg some both forgiveness and patience from the parishioners as it grows, and they get to see it as it grows.
Can I give you a tip?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is even a good idea because sometimes apologizing or giving disclaimers is good, but you could do it in a positive way. You
Yeah.
can say, as the app's kinks get worked out, we're going to be even better and we're going to grow more as a community through this.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Because if you say,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's new and blah, 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 don't do that.
Yeah, I
You
don't.
wanna
Yeah,
get them
I'll
on
just
there.
say it's just to set expectations. You go in and this is what's there now, but it's going to grow.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I could see this. I could see this going a couple of different ways. I could see a lot of people jumping on. I could see you needing to invite people. I think 7 to 11 times is the average amount of time someone has to have an invitation via marketing. But you're going to do this in person. If you tap into a collective sense of purpose and people look at each other and go, "Let's do it," then I think you've gotten that first start. But either way, I could see you being successful over the scope, schedule, and budget. That's my project.
Well, yeah. I'm hoping that we see a lot of people sign up and get get on the platforms. And that would be like one of the things I'll report back is like, how many people do we have on today?
Right.
Starting with the parish and, and see how that grows over the next few months.
Can
And
I use
yeah.
your app? Is it is there a way once you do your first trial to copy paste that to a different parish?
Yes.
Ooh.
So it's basically there's I'll say the second app that I'm using is a thing called Mighty Networks,
Right.
and it's kind of like being able to do Facebook groups,
Mhm.
but private groups and no ads.
Now,
And so
question.
yeah,
This strikes me as a very good idea if it feels personalized to the community. If there's
yes,
an app with their specific service projects, with their social, all of them on the app together, building, engaging each other on an app.
yeah,
Like if I did that for
but
the university students and put all of our impact resources, GP Catholic projects, if I did it for the parish here, St. Philip's or Our Lady of Perpetual Help, I could
yeah,
see this being replicatable, and I hope that we can do that after your, what would you call it? What's a trial? Beta test, I guess?
yeah,
Is this
beta
a beta
test,
test?
yeah. So we're kind of like pre-alpha testing at this point, but you know, I think calling it a beta test is really generous. But it's one of the hard pieces actually. I think is the content, the actual content for the content platform. So
And we're all going to work together. I've got
yeah,
great writers on my team.
yeah. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and that's the thing we need to share. Like once I have something ready to show you, and what's interesting about it is it's not as personalized as I wanted it to be in this particular instance. But basically, there's different groups. People can be grouped by the kind of activities they're involved in. There's also courses that can be done. So one of the things I did is I created a course that's basically a bunch of links out to the USCCB website on Catholic social teaching. So like it steps you through their primary videos and content about
I think you need to
social.
supplement that with like a chapter or two from Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People here and there, especially if it's personalized to somebody who
Oh
wants to
yeah,
get out and be with people. And there's a
yeah,
great book, and there's a couple of books in the series called The Go Giver. Oh, I love that. And I would definitely put that in a course. But there's all sorts
yeah,
of resources like that. And then you have your Catholic social teaching to kind of
yeah,
build on the theology and the understanding of dignity and morality and serving the poor,
exactly.
the universal destination of goods,
Yeah,
where all the things on the earth, especially for basic needs, are meant for
yeah,
everyone. They're not meant to be hoarded in a warehouse while someone's starving, while you got a big warehouse of grain to be biblical. The grain. I
yeah,
don't know if we really do warehouses of grain anymore, but I mean there are, but it's kind of commercialized. Anyway,
yeah,
all right. So you've got this app. You want it to be more personal. I love where we're started off at.
yeah,
I'm excited about where we're gonna go, and I really am looking forward to getting my hands on that for projects in my parish and at the universities where my team over the next maybe a year from now will be able to plant service communities and travel around, and we'll be able to have a big fun growth period up to that point of doing these podcasts and updating whoever is interested in service, whoever has a heart for service and wants to see the
yeah,
church, wants to see our country more unified across political and faith spectrums. Like I can serve with anybody. If we're serving the poor, if we see a need and we see us being able to do something about it, doesn't matter what you believe, we can do that together.
yeah.
And I think our
No,
country, our
very
church
true.
needs that now to be activated in service, and something that's unifying, right? And activating because we're myself included, we're on our phones, we're on our TVs, and we need something to get us out there, making friends, building community again. And there has to
Yeah,
be a format for that.
yeah. Yeah, that's actually one of the great things of getting out into service too is you put those devices aside and you're actually engaging with people and or in some cases you may be just doing like manual labor or something, but you're away from that device and just kind of
You're
engaging in the
influencing
real world.
something you can control.
Yeah,
You're making a difference.
yeah,
Yeah.
true. Yeah,
Well, Peter, I really appreciate your time today. I'm looking
all right.
forward to doing this again sometime.
Yeah, I look forward to giving you an update and tell you like how many people we've gotten signed up and the events we've done, those kinds of things the next time we talk. And pray they don't crash and burn on Sunday.
You can't crash and burn. It's just failing
Yeah,
forward.
yeah,
Because
it's
we're
not an
doing
option.
this in some way, and it's going to be what it is. God willing,
Yeah,
it goes well.
thank you.
All right, I'll see you maybe next week. We'll be able to do this as an update.
Yeah, that sounds
Have
good.
like a topic. Sounds good. All right, I look forward
All
to it.
right, talk to you then.